This again is where you come to a series of mysteries which are perhaps best expressed on the Giza Plateau.
There's something buried beneath the sands of Giza, and we're not being allowed to see it. This isn't a new conspiracy. It's an ancient one. Beneath the world's most iconic monuments lie unexplored structures, guarded by laws and secrecy.
What is your take on these Italian researchers that are looking at the tomography and they're looking at these things that they believe are underneath the Great Pyramid and some other structures in Egypt?
Joe Rogan's podcast brought this mystery back into the spotlight, and Graham Hancock's words might explain why we still can't dig there. If you thought the pyramids had no more secrets left, think again. Let's dive in. The forbidden question. Picture this moment. You're standing at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the most studied structures in human history. Scientists have analyzed every visible stone, measured every angle, and calculated every dimension. Yet, somehow, the Egyptian authorities have drawn a line in the sand when it comes to what lies beneath.
I don't know enough about the technology, but I have been working with a number of other people who know a lot more about it than I do.
Graham Hancock has spent decades asking uncomfortable questions about our past. When he appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, the conversation naturally gravitated toward one of archaeology's biggest mysteries. Why are researchers prevented from conducting extensive excavations underneath the pyramids? The official reasons sound reasonable enough on the surface, but when you start pulling at the threads, things get interesting. The Egyptian government maintains strict control over archaeological sites throughout the country. This makes sense when you consider these monuments are thousands of years old and incredibly fragile. Every dig carries risks. Every excavation potentially damages what it seeks to explore. But is protection the only reason, or is there something more complicated happening here? What struck many viewers about the Rogan Hancock discussion was the genuine frustration in their voices. Here were two people passionate about uncovering humanity's hidden history, running headfirst into bureaucratic walls. The permits are nearly impossible to obtain, the restrictions are rigid and uncompromising, and the explanations sometimes feel incomplete. The conversation revealed something fascinating about modern archaeology. We have technology that can peer through solid rock without disturbing a single grain of sand. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, and electromagnetic sensors can map underground structures with stunning accuracy. Yet even these non-invasive methods face significant pushback when it comes to exploring beneath Egypt's most famous monuments. The man behind the mystery. Graham Hancock is not your typical academic. His background in sociology and journalism gave him a different lens through which to view ancient civilizations. Rather than accepting established narratives, he questions them relentlessly. This approach has made him both wildly popular with the public and deeply controversial within traditional archaeological circles.
For those who don't know me, I'm Graham Hancock.
I've been exploring the possibility of a lost civilization in prehistory for more than 30 years.
His Netflix series, Ancient Apocalypse, brought alternative history theories into mainstream consciousness. Millions of viewers were suddenly asking questions that academics had dismissed for generations. Could there have been advanced civilizations before recorded history? Did a global cataclysm wipe out evidence of humanity's true past? Are we missing massive pieces of our own story? When Hancock appears on Joe Rogan's podcast, something magical happens. Rogan has a gift for asking the questions that ordinary people actually want answers to. He doesn't get bogged down in academic jargon or professional politeness. If something sounds fishy, he calls it out. If something seems hidden, he wants to know why. The chemistry between Hancock and Rogan creates space for speculation that would never happen in formal academic settings. They explore possibilities without claiming definitive proof. They acknowledge uncertainty while pursuing compelling leads. This approach drives traditional archaeologists crazy, but it resonates with millions of curious minds around the world. Hancock's theories about a lost advanced civilization have faced fierce criticism from mainstream archaeology. His critics argue he cherry-picks evidence and ignores contradictory data. Yet his supporters point out that established archaeology has its own blind spots. How many impossible discoveries have eventually proven true? How often has scientific consensus shifted dramatically when new evidence emerged? The Great Pyramids, underground secrets. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of humanity's most mysterious monuments. Built around 4,500 years ago, during Pharaoh Khufu's reign, its construction demonstrates astonishing precision, from near-perfect alignment with true north to encoded mathematical relationships that suggest advanced knowledge. Beyond its visible grandeur, modern studies using ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging have revealed anomalies beneath the pyramid, including potential chambers, tunnels, and structures that remain unexplored, hinting at a hidden network lying beneath one of the world's most studied monuments. In 2024, advanced remote sensing technology detected massive underground formations over 2,100 feet deep, including 8 vertical cylindrical shafts arranged in parallel, clearly man-made rather than natural. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities acknowledged the findings but urged extreme caution, citing preservation concerns and potential structural risks. While these restrictions are understandable, technology today allows for exploration without destructive excavation. Ancient texts and historical accounts, from Herodotus to medieval Arab manuscripts, describe underground rooms and caverns, leaving open the tantalizing question: are these merely legends, or do they point to hidden chambers and knowledge still buried beneath the Giza plateau? The archaeological gatekeepers. For decades, one name dominated Egyptian archaeology more than any other:
that the workmen who built the pyramids worked only 4 months a year.
Zahi Hawass. As the former Minister of Antiquities and head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, Hawass wielded enormous power over who could dig, where and what theories would receive official support. His personality was larger than life, his opinions uncompromising, and his control over Egypt's archaeological sites nearly absolute. Hawass became famous for his passionate defense of Egyptian heritage. He fought tirelessly to repatriate artifacts stolen during colonial periods. He promoted Egyptian archaeology to global audiences through documentaries and lectures, but his critics argue he also stifled alternative research and protected orthodox interpretations of Egyptian history with an iron fist. When Graham Hancock wanted to investigate unconventional theories about the pyramids, he found himself facing bureaucratic obstacles at every turn. Permits that should have been routine became impossible to obtain. Access to sites was restricted or denied. The official explanation always centered on preservation and protection, but some researchers detected a pattern of suppression. The relationship between Hawass and alternative researchers like Hancock became openly adversarial. Hawass dismissed most alternative theories as pseudoscience and fantasy. He argued that professional archaeologists had spent lifetimes studying these sites and knew better than speculative authors. His position represented the mainstream archaeological establishment's view toward unconventional ideas. But here's the uncomfortable question that keeps surfacing. What if the gatekeepers have incentives beyond pure scientific integrity? Egypt's tourism industry generates billions of dollars annually. The pyramids are the crown jewel of that industry. Any discovery that dramatically rewrote Egyptian history could disrupt established narratives and threaten economic interests. Is this paranoid thinking, or a legitimate consideration? The 5% rule. During his discussion with Joe Rogan, Graham Hancock highlighted a striking aspect of archaeological practice. Researchers typically excavate no more than 5% of any given site. This cautious approach exists because excavation is inherently destructive. Once a site is dug up, it cannot be restored. By leaving the majority untouched, archaeologists preserve material for future generations, who may possess better tools, dating methods, and understanding to extract more information. While this strategy makes sense in most contexts, it raises questions when applied to the Giza pyramids, which have been studied extensively for centuries and remain largely unexplored beneath the surface. This 5% rule frustrates those curious about Egypt's underground mysteries. Even when advanced scanning identifies promising anomalies, actual excavation may be delayed indefinitely in the name of preservation, leaving the public and researchers alike in suspense. Critics argue that if exploration is always postponed for hypothetical future technology, we may never uncover the truth. In the case of the pyramids, preservation may be used as a convenient rationale for maintaining the status quo, rather than actively seeking answers to questions that have captivated humanity for millennia. Recent underground discoveries. Despite strict access limitations, recent studies have revealed remarkable findings beneath the Giza plateau. In March 2025, a joint Italian-Scottish research team using ground-penetrating radar claimed to have discovered structures resembling an immense underground city stretching more than 6,500 feet below the pyramids. Their scans showed what appeared to be chambers, tunnels, and vertical shafts arranged in deliberate patterns, suggesting organized construction on a scale far greater than previously imagined. If verified, this would mark one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in history, achieved without a single stone being displaced. The announcement immediately divided the archaeological community. Some hailed the research as revolutionary, while others dismissed it as a misinterpretation of radar data and cautioned against exaggeration. Egyptian authorities responded with their usual restraint, neither confirming nor refuting the claims. What truly fascinates researchers is the reported depth of these formations, far deeper than any known pyramid structures, raising questions about their origin, purpose, and the technology required to create them. For now, the discovery highlights a deeper conflict in archaeology itself, the clash between open-minded exploration and cautious preservation, between those seeking to rewrite history and those determined to protect it. The Sphinx connection. The Great Sphinx of Giza, as mysterious as the pyramids themselves, continues to fuel debate about its true age and purpose. Mainstream archaeologists date it to around 2500 BCE, aligning it with the pyramid builders, but alternative researchers argue it could be thousands of years older. They point to weathering patterns that resemble erosion from heavy rainfall, conditions Egypt hasn't experienced since well before the rise of ancient civilization. This geological evidence raises a provocative question. Could the Sphinx predate the Egyptians who are credited with building it? Adding to the intrigue, seismic studies in the 1990s revealed possible chambers beneath the monument's pores, yet authorities have consistently refused permission for exploration. Legends further enrich the mystery, particularly those describing a hidden hall of records beneath the Sphinx, said to contain the ancient wisdom of lost civilizations like Atlantis. While mainstream scholars dismiss such stories as myth, the persistent ban on deeper investigation keeps curiosity and suspicion alive. Egyptian officials insist that preservation outweighs the risks of excavation, but critics question whether this caution conceals a desire to avoid discoveries that might rewrite accepted history. As a result, the Sphinx stands not only as a monument of stone, but as a symbol of unanswered questions that continue to captivate the world. Lost civilization theories. Graham Hancock's central theory proposes that an advanced civilization existed before recorded history, thriving during the last ice age until a cataclysm about 11,600 years ago wiped it out. He believes survivors of this lost society spread their knowledge globally, inspiring the sudden rise of agriculture, architecture, and mathematics in early human cultures. This, he argues, explains the striking similarities among ancient civilizations, such as pyramid-building traditions and flood myths that appear across continents with no known contact between them. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which suggests comet fragments struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, offers potential scientific backing, proposing a disaster capable of erasing nearly all traces of such a civilization. Critics, however, emphasize the lack of concrete archaeological evidence, no recovered cities, tools, or written records to substantiate Hancock's claims. They view his theory as speculation that stretches beyond the data. Hancock responds that any remains of such a civilization likely lie beneath the ocean, submerged after post-Ice Age sea level rise. The debate intensifies around the pyramids, which some suggest might preserve traces of this earlier epoch. If proven true, it would rewrite human history, but until exploration goes deeper, the mystery remains suspended between skepticism and possibility, technology versus tradition. Modern imaging tools like ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistivity surveys, and seismic tomography have transformed archaeology, allowing scientists to map underground structures with precision without disturbing the sites themselves. These technologies can reveal hidden chambers, guide excavations, and protect fragile heritage sites. In theory, they offer the perfect balance between discovery and preservation. Yet, despite their promise, such methods are used sparingly at places like the Giza pyramids, where permissions, funding, and bureaucratic caution often slow progress. Egypt's archaeological authorities must juggle preservation concerns, tourism interests, and national pride, factors that make open experimentation more complicated than it seems. However, many alternative researchers see a deeper issue at play. They argue that Egypt's reluctance to fully embrace advanced technology reflects an institutional resistance to findings that could disrupt accepted historical narratives. When new data emerges, official responses are often cautious, even dismissive, leading to frustration among those eager for answers. The irony is striking. Humanity now has the tools to peer beneath one of the world's greatest mysteries without causing harm. Yet those tools remain largely unused. For researchers outside the establishment, the lingering question is not whether we can look, but why we aren't allowed to. The tourism factor. Egypt's tourism industry, which brought in about $8 billion in 2024, depends heavily on the Giza pyramids as its crown jewel, attracting millions of visitors each year. A major discovery beneath these monuments could draw even greater global attention, but it might also disrupt the carefully crafted historical narrative that supports the industry. The accepted story that ancient Egyptians built the pyramids through organization, simple tools, and immense human effort is inspiring, easy to understand, and commercially appealing. It gives tourists a sense of wonder without challenging what they already believe about history. However, alternative theories suggesting that the pyramids are far older or were built with advanced, unknown technologies could complicate this picture. Such revelations might generate excitement but also confusion, casting doubt on mainstream archaeology and the trustworthiness of Egypt's official narratives. In that sense, the reluctance to dig deeper beneath the pyramids may not stem from a desire to hide secrets, but from an effort to preserve a stable, profitable tourism model. Sometimes, the simplest explanation, protecting economic interests, can be more believable than grand conspiracies. International politics and national pride, archaeological control in Egypt extends far beyond academic boundaries, because the pyramids are powerful symbols of national pride and identity. How Egypt's ancient history is interpreted shapes how the country presents itself to the world, making it a sensitive issue when foreign researchers propose theories that challenge Egypt's ownership of its own past. Figures like Graham Hancock, a British author, and other Western researchers often face resistance rooted in historical context. For centuries, European powers looted Egyptian artifacts and took credit for discoveries that locals had long known about, leaving a legacy of resentment that still influences modern attitudes toward foreign-led research. When outsiders suggest that Egyptians may not have built the pyramids, or that these monuments predate Egyptian civilization, it strikes a deeply emotional chord. Such claims, even if supported by evidence, can feel like an attempt to strip Egypt of one of its proudest achievements. The government's tight control over access and research is, therefore, understandable as a defense of cultural heritage. Yet, this desire to protect national identity can sometimes conflict with scientific openness and the pursuit of truth. Balancing respect for Egypt's sovereignty with the need for transparent investigation remains one of the greatest challenges in uncovering the true story of the pyramids. The Chamber Mysteries. The Great Pyramid's interior has been partially explored, with the King's and Queen's chambers being the most well-known. Yet, advanced scanning technologies have revealed several unexplored spaces, including a massive Big Void detected in 2017 using cosmic ray muon radiography. This cavity, more than 100 feet long and located above the Grand Gallery, remains a mystery, as Egyptian authorities have not pursued further exploration. This has become a familiar pattern, promising discoveries announced, excitement builds, and then official silence follows, leaving the mysteries unresolved. Researchers remain divided on what these hidden chambers might contain. Some believe they could hold artifacts or records from the pyramid's builders, while others think they are structural voids meant to reduce weight. Still, no one knows for certain because physical exploration has been halted. This lack of access fuels ongoing speculation. Are these spaces being carefully preserved for protection, or deliberately avoided to prevent revelations that might challenge established history? Until someone is allowed to look, the Great Pyramid will continue to guard its deepest secrets. What the experts say. The archaeological community remains deeply divided over how to interpret restrictions on pyramid excavation. Mainstream archaeologists generally defend Egyptian authorities' cautious approach. They argue that preservation must take priority over curiosity and that rushing into invasive exploration risks damaging irreplaceable monuments. Dr. Zahi Hawass, despite his controversial reputation, articulates the preservation argument forcefully. He emphasizes that once an artifact is disturbed or a chamber opened, its context is forever altered. Future technologies might allow us to extract more information from undisturbed sites than current methods permit. Therefore, patience serves science better than aggressive investigation. Alternative researchers counter that this logic creates a perpetual excuse for inaction. Technology will always continue improving, so by this reasoning, we should never excavate anything. They point out that current remote sensing technology already provides unprecedented capabilities for non-invasive investigation. Continuing to prohibit even these non-invasive methods suggests motivations beyond pure preservation concerns. Geologists who have studied the Sphinx's weathering patterns find themselves caught in the crossfire. Their observations about water erosion don't necessarily support wild theories about lost civilizations, but they do suggest the monument might be older than traditionally believed. However, publishing such findings can jeopardize future access to Egyptian sites, creating pressure to conform to orthodox interpretations. The debate within archaeology reflects broader tensions between conventional and unconventional thinking in science. Established experts naturally defend established theories, while outsiders and challengers question assumptions and push boundaries. Both perspectives serve important functions, but the clash between them can impede progress when institutional power suppresses legitimate questions. What we know for certain is that beneath the Giza pyramids, underground anomalies have been detected but remain unexplored, as Egyptian authorities continue to restrict access in the name of preservation. Researchers like Graham Hancock believe these limits prevent discoveries that could challenge accepted historical narratives, fueling a debate that remains unresolved. What lies below is still unknown. It could be exactly what mainstream archaeologists expect, or something that redefines human history altogether. Until modern technology is allowed to investigate, all we have are theories and speculation. The conversation between Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock has brought these mysteries to a massive audience, sparking renewed public fascination with the unanswered questions buried beneath Egypt's sands. What do you think is really beneath the pyramids? Let us know in the comments below.